Okay, good morning, everyone. Good morning. So welcome to the 2025 New York City Mayoral Forum. This session, yes, thank you. Thank you. This session is being recorded and live streamed on cccnewyork.org. Today's conversation with New York City's 2025 mayoral candidates is being hosted by the Alliance for Quality Education, the Campaign for Children, the Coalition for Community Schools Excellence, the New York State Network for Youth Success, and the Coalition for Equitable Education Funding. Together, our coalitions and organizations are dedicated to enhancing access to a range of critical services and programs for children, youth, and their families across New York City and New York State. Today would not have been possible without our amazing host, University Settlement. We want to thank them for hosting us and also bring up Stephen Puerto Rico from the Chief Program and Equity Officer of University Settlement to bring us some welcome remarks.
Oh, fancy. So good morning, good morning. I'm gonna do a little activity, kind of just raise the energy up a little bit. So if you hear my voice, clap once. If you hear my voice, clap twice. If you hear my voice, keep clapping. Sorry, during these growing challenging times, I need some energy in the mornings to kind of get my energy going. So thank you for that. So my name is Stephen Puerto Rico. I am the Chief Program and Equity Officer for University Settlement. I just want to share a little bit about who we are as an organization, so bear with me. University Settlement is a pioneering organization dedicated to building stronger communities and fostering equality in New York City. Established in 1886 as the first settlement house in the United States, University Settlement has been at the forefront of social services for nearly 140 years. We partner with over 40,000 New Yorkers annually in Lower Manhattan and in Brooklyn, offering a wide range of programs designed to support individuals and families at every stage of life. Our mission is to fight poverty and systemic inequality by creating highly effective social services in collaboration with our neighbors. So our programs include early childhood education, where we provide high quality care and education for younger children, ensuring they have a strong foundation for future learning and development. Our youth development programs, which includes after-school programs that offer safe, fun, and purpose-driven activities where young people can build their future. A mental health and wellness department in which we make mental health care accessible and affordable, supporting the emotional well-being of our community. We also have housing services, and through our Project Home program, we partner with tenants and prevent evictions and advocate for safe, affordable housing for all New Yorkers. We also have adult literacy classes in which we offer free English classes for speakers of other languages at various levels of adult students. We also have services for older adults where these programs promote longevity through education, art, recreation, and nutrition, ensuring elders remain active, connected, and cared for. We also have community centers, and these centers in Lower Manhattan and in Brooklyn serve as places to gather, collaborate, and belong. And of course, we have the arts, where we encourage and empower creativity by providing opportunities for mentorship and venues for artistic expression. Many of these expressions take place here at Sprier Hall. At University Settlement, every program is a partnership. By working together with our neighbors, we take small steps to lead significant impacts in our community. This partnership is especially important during these growing, challenging times in which we stay committed to building bright futures and strong communities. Welcome to Sprier Hall and welcome to University Settlement. Thank you.
I'm going to do it one more time because that's the beauty of recording. So today's conversation of New York City's 2025 mayoral candidates is being hosted by the Alliance for Quality Education, the Campaign for Children, the Coalition for Community Schools Excellence, the New York State Network for Youth Success, the Coalition for Equitable Education Funding, and New Yorkers United for Childcare. Welcome once again. Again, we are live streaming at cccnewyork.org. So please join us there as well. Today's conversation is going to focus on childcare, education, and youth services. During this interview style forum, each mayoral candidate will be given the opportunity to speak directly to the continuum of childcare, education, and youth services that help families and communities thrive throughout New York City. You'll learn about each candidate's vision for New York City's youth, families, and communities, how candidates plan to address affordability and access to a continuum of childcare, education, and youth services, candidates' vision for programs and services, including 3K, after-school programs, community schools, and education funding, among other things. I want to just give you a little bit of a plug because we are here to talk about a mayoral forum. We have voter registration deadline that's coming up on June 14th. So we want to make sure that this is not just that you're here to listen, but that you're also activating yourselves. Early voting will be taking place between June 14th and June 22nd. And of course, your last opportunity to vote will be on primary election day on June 24th. All of the candidates have been invited to join us. Today, you will have a tasting of some of the candidates because not all candidates were able to join us. But before we begin, we're going to also now bring up Raisa Rodriguez, Executive Director of Citizens Committee for Children, for welcoming remarks.
Thank you, Annie. Hi, everyone. Good morning. I'm Raisa Rodriguez, Executive Director of Citizens Committee for Children. CCC has been around for about 80 years, working to ensure every child is healthy, housed, educated, and safe. And we've been a longtime co-lead of the Campaign for Children. I don't know who, I'm sorry, but I don't know who was giving out stress balls. But someone asked, do you want a stress ball? And I said, absolutely, give one to me. And I don't know if this was purposeful, but talk about timely, because we are certainly living through some stressful time. And there's nothing more stressful, speaking from experience, but also professionally experience as well, nothing more stressful than finding affordable, high quality, safe care for our babies, no matter how big or small they are. So today we will have an opportunity to hear from some of the candidates, mayoral candidates that were able to make it today. I want to point out we are elevating and focusing on one critical question today for each of them. And that is, what will it take to make New York City a place where every child, youth, family can thrive, regardless of income, regardless of immigration status, regardless of disabilities, regardless of housing status. We believe that a city is possible. New York City can be the lead in effective policymaking for children and youth. So I'm excited. I hope you all are excited to hear from the candidates, to hear about their vision, their plan on how to make that come true to life. We are in really challenging times. It goes without saying across all levels of government. But I do want to point out the critical moment that we're in, with ongoing challenges and threats coming from the federal level. The funding for Head Start, the threats to funding for Head Start, just to name a few, and the slashing of resources for schools really put us in a situation where this critical transition in New York City will have to play a pivotal role to protect our system of care and education. It is now time to double down on efforts to protect and expand services for children and youth. We also can't understate the importance of affordability. You're going to hear us talk a lot about affordability. These are not new issues that we're raising. We know that, simply put, care for children, young children and older children alike, is simply unaffordable. CCC's own data points to the fact that more than 80% of families with children under the age of 5 are unable to find affordable childcare. And more than 4 out of 5 families with citywide with children, school-age children, are unable to find care after school or during summer. I'm going to wrap up by elevating a couple of key issues that I think need to be central as we consider this moment that we are in of critical transition in New York City. Affordability, I'll say it again. We have to make sure our system is affordable and accessible to all families. School funding and equity, right? We're in a moment in time where equity is now considered, taboo. We have to face these issues. We must make sure schools are equitable for all students, students in transitional housing, students with disability, immigrant students, English language learners, and the like. 2 more points I'll make in terms of critical things we need to prioritize. Again, these are not new issues, but they've gone unaddressed for far too long. First, we must ensure investments in the human services workforce, the backbone of our childcare and youth serving system. The next mayor must address what has been a deep, long history of an underpaid sector. Adequate rates must be prioritized and elevated, and continued progress to salary parity in the childcare workforce must continue and pave the way. And finally, this seems very simple, but worth stating, that the next mayor must pay providers, and must pay providers on time. On-time payments, including what is millions of owed in back pay. These are just a few of the things that I think are critical for us to listen and to pay attention to as we hear about the vision and plans of the candidates ahead. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Raisa, for that framing. I'm going to bring up someone else that's going to also help us with a little bit of framing, and it is Sakia Ansari, the co-director of AQE.
Wow, y'all look good out there. It's hard to tell from up here. You're like all the way in the front, and you look up, you're like, wow, look at this beautiful New York. Morning, yes. Good morning, everyone. My name is Zakia Shakir Ansari. I'm the co-executive director of the Alliance for Quality Education. I have been doing this work for 25 years now. I graduated 8 children out of New York City public schools. Give me an applause, please. I have 3 grandchildren who attend middle school in Brooklyn, the same middle school that their mother and aunt attended. And I have a 5-year-old who attends a private school. And if anyone needs an employer, she could use a job because they don't make these kids like they used to, I tell you. The Alliance for Quality Education is also 25 years old this year. So we feel like teenagers in the midst of everybody who's up there 80 years, 100 plus years. But, I think what that shows is that the longevity and sustainability is what matters. Like, we have to make sure that we are sustaining what we put in place and that are working for young people, that are working for children, again, from as little as the ones wearing diapers to the ones who are on their way to the next level of university, college, or work, right? And our focus for the last 25 years is to make sure that the funds that you all need to do the work that you do, whether you're providers or you send your children to the schools or you're a student yourself, like there's stuff there that you need and that there's dollars there to provide that. And as you can imagine, because I've seen familiar faces who have gone to Albany with us over the decades, I might say, that is not an easy task. It should be, right? Children need social workers. Let's find the money. Children need special education teachers. Let's find that money, right? But it's not, and that's not okay. But I'm here to say, New York City, we deserve nice things. We do. We deserve a mentality that is centered in abundance, not scarcity. There is so much money out there. And we have constantly heard over the decades that it's just not time. We just don't have the money. We can't do the thing. But we see what priorities are. Because it's not priority, there's no shortage of dollars when we're trying to build more prisons. Right? There's an abundance. I've never heard a shortage of dollars on that front. But guess what? Imagine investing on the front end. Oh, but that would be equity. That would be justice. That would be liberatory. I say that we deserve nice things because sometimes we get caught up in the, the mindset of, wow, that's a lot of money. And on our personal pockets, yeah, $1 billion is a lot of money. $3 billion is a lot of money. But in the scheme of investing in children, if they need more, then we need to invest more because we know what happens when we don't. So when we have folks up here, whether they're mayoral candidates for this instance or anybody else, we've lived long enough, many of us in here, to see people run and say, I would love to give you those things, but I think we're also in this moment of we see what the but looks like. The but is not an option anymore. You can't tell us you don't have the dollars. It's not acceptable. We see where those funds are going, right? So we can't have people come and say but anymore. Because if that's where they're leading with, that's how they're starting, then we need to say, you're a non-starter for me. You're a non-starter for my children, my future children, my nieces and nephews, my cousins, right? Or just the children, period, right? People will always come to us and say what they can't do. I want the person who's going to come and say what I can do. But because we've seen decades of what people telling us what they can't do, the impact of that, we have prisons full of what you can't do, right? We have folks on the streets telling us what you can't do because they're unhoused, right? We have people who are sick and ill and can't go to the hospital because you can't do healthcare. You can't fund childcare providers who are making poverty wages. We see what that means for them as they close their shelters and their doors. So I say all that, we have the knowledge, and some of it spans, 2 decades in this room, maybe 40 decades, 50, 60 decades. And even if it's not that long, we read books and we are experiencing New York in this moment. Federal government gonna do what federal government do. We need to fight that, yes. But there is local power that exists here. And if folks are starting with that preface too, do you see what's happening on the federal? Yes, and what are you going to do here for New York City? Right? And so I say all that and I'll end now and just say, let's not fall for the okie doke. We've seen what it looks like, right? Let's center our voices, let's center our vote. Let's hold folks accountable. We might know them from their previous this and their previous that. Liking somebody ain't got nothing to do with doing politics. If they're not passing policy that is doing better and lifting up New York City, I don't need to like you. I don't need you to like me. I don't care if you don't like me. Pass the policies that will get our folks housed. Pass the policies that will give our young people jobs. Pass the policies that are going to pay our child care providers. And also, so we're not losing potentially 60,000 slots because of CCAP, the cut to that. Tell us what you're going to do, not what you can't do. Thank you. Oh, sorry, walk away from the mic.
Okay, our first candidate is here, people. But before we begin, I'm going to ask Alec Zimmerman to please join us on the stage. I'm just going to turn on your mic. Okay, I think you're on. We'll know if you're not. Okay, awesome. So Alex joined the Chalkbeat team in 2016, where he covers the largest school system in the country. Before covering schools, Alex focused on police accountability, LGBT issues, public health, and transportation. Alex was a staff writer at the Pittsburgh City Paper and the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. His work has appeared in The Atlantic, Village Voice, Vice, and Atlas Obscura. Thank you, Alex, for joining us. As you all know, there are 12 candidates running for mayor. Today, we have the pleasure of welcoming New York State Senator from Queens, Jessica Ramos. Good morning. Bien, ¿y tú? Gracias. I give you a mic.
Oh, okay, double mic. Oh, I'm pretty loud. I carry my Queen's voice everywhere I go. How's everybody doing? Good.
So thank you so much for joining us. We've got a few different candidates coming, so I'm just going to jump right in. So the organizations and individuals gathered here today are committed to ensuring that all children have access to high-quality early childhood education and youth services, including childcare, pre-K, after-school, and summer programs, regardless of the family's income or a child's disability, housing status, or immigration status. As mayor, how would you make this a reality? And what is your vision for early childhood and youth development programs in the city?
Thank you for the question, and good morning, everyone. This is a great place to have this discussion, and I'm so happy to be here because as a former member of the de Blasio administration who rounded out the team that delivered on universal pre-K, actually the last time I was here was when pre-K was being implemented, and I got to see the very early days of the program right here at the Settlement House and how it transformed the lives of the children and, of course, the parents, and provided for so much opportunity for our child care workers. I'm the state senator who carries the prescriptive bill on universal child care. It's called the Early Learning Child Care Act, largely predicated on the model that we built to deliver on universal pre-K. And I invite you to look at that model so that you can understand the way in which I'm seeking to build capacity, work with Albany to get the funding that we need in order to do it, and make sure that we are acknowledging it as a triple workforce bill, which is how I always talk about childcare. Obviously, parents get to go back to work, get peace of mind by making sure that even if they're not working, there's a safe place to leave their child when they're in a pickle. It's also about preparing our children because they're only about 20 years away from becoming workers themselves, as depressing as that sounds, but more the reason why childcare workers play such an important role in really helping us identify developmental and learning disabilities as early as possible, and especially in communities like mine and this one, closing what's called the baby word gap. For those of you who are educators, I'm sure I don't have to explain, but children in less affluent neighborhoods hear 3 million fewer words than their more affluent counterparts in New York. And that's what the discrepancy we sought to bridge with universal pre-K. I cannot tell you how heartbroken I have been to see what has happened to the program. We left 3K in a certain place, thinking that the next Democratic mayor would just build on that model and work backwards towards newborns. But if you ask me, we just got a Trump Democrat instead, who does not see that as a priority when it comes to public safety and education and as an economic incentive. So this is actually what I believe we would get the biggest return on our investment of taxpayer dollars. And I have to say that on January 1st, when the new mayor takes office, Kathy Hochul will still be our governor. And we have to make sure the next mayor has a working relationship with Governor Hochul. I'm proud to say I've been able to deliver on an expansion of childcare eligibility as a baseline to bringing more New Yorkers into the system. We went from 275% to 400% of the federal poverty line throughout my tenure. I've largely leveraged my bill in order to get us there. Now, whenever the state budget happens, don't ask me when, I don't know. Whenever the state budget happens, I want to be able to say that we've done away with the minimum wage requirement for parents to be able to access childcare. You can only imagine, as a Latina who represents Jackson Heights, how much I want to make sure we're including the women with children who are selling candy on the trains. Absolutely every child deserves a safe place to be at any given point in time. And just to tie a ribbon on it, because I'm sure there are many questions, I have to say that we need to bring technology into the fold. I shouldn't only be able to open up an app on my phone to make a reservation at a restaurant. I should be able to find a responsible caregiver within a certain radius of my home in a matter of seconds. And that is not the truth about our childcare system right now. And there's just so much to do. And we're going to need all of you to be our partners in delivering.
So, thank you. I want to jump into one of the defining issues of the mayor's race, which is affordability. So childcare for toddlers costs New Yorkers an average of $24,000 a year, according to the Citizens Committee for Children. Additionally, about 80% of eligible toddlers aren't receiving vouchers they qualify for, and private care for 2-year-olds is unaffordable for many New Yorkers. These costs and complications around childcare are prompting some families to leave, and families with kids under 6 are twice as likely to move out. How do you plan to make childcare more affordable and accessible so working and middle-class families can afford to stay in your
I
city?
want it to be free, and I feel like I've answered a lot of that. I've answered a lot of that in my answer to the previous question, but I have to say, now I haven't been pregnant in 11 years. When I first had Benjamin, who is now 13, my husband and I had to figure out how we were going to do it. It ended up being a hodgepodge of things. He at the time was working in Dutchess County, and luckily I had an aunt in the Bronx. And we're talking about us living in Jackson Heights. And then through the state system, I was able to find this very nice woman on my block who had a home care system. And frankly, I felt was designed for someone like me because she reminded me of my mom. I knew that my child would be spoken to in both languages, English and Spanish, which is important to me and my family, and that there would be competent care. So making sure that we are thinking about all the ways that we can address the crisis, making sure that we are empowering what routinely is more women, and particularly women of color, to do the work of care, right? And thinking about how a big part of the responsibility in designing such a system is reversing the feminization of poverty, right? Care work is extremely underpaid, whether you're talking about childcare or elder care, home health attendants, people who care for people with disabilities. I mean, we just completely undervalue this work by design, right? Because the labor law was not inclusive of domestic workers due to the racists who wrote those labor laws over 100 years ago. And I'm proud to say that I'm also the senator who has routinely passed paid sick leave for domestic workers in the New York State Senate. So there's a lot we need to do, and that I believe we can do in order to implement a system that works. And I'm probably going to get ahead of another question, but largely are making sure that our daycares and every single provider is paid on time.
Yep, you're ahead of the game
I
on a
figured.
couple questions that are coming up.
I just talk about this all the time. I'm sorry. Because I mean, I have to say $24,000 a year, that's another rent. I mean, that's more than CUNY college tuition. And I actually argue that parents are paying twice for childcare. They're paying their taxes and then they're paying for childcare. That's what I argue.
Yeah, so you mentioned some of this context a second ago, but I'll repeat it. So the early childhood education and youth services workforce are the sort of backbone of the systems that serve families. You just pointed out that this workforce is mostly women of color. There are people who often feel underpaid and underappreciated in those sectors, and there's an enormous amount of turnover
Yes.
and vacancies.
My plan accounts for student loan forgiveness for our childcare workers, by the way.
So I'm curious, like what, in terms of your agenda, like how you would invest in the early childhood education and youth services workforce to ensure they're receiving the pay and the benefits that they deserve and need to support, families and communities.
Well, I think in building out the capacity, it's very similar to what we saw with universal pre-K in us making an assessment of the current structures that we can count on within the existing public school system. Because let me tell you, that double drop-off thing for parents is a doozy. And figuring out, what you're going to do every morning. I went through it with Benjamin and Tomas, and it was a nightmare for a solid 2 years because that's the difference between them. So when they were going to the same school, great. And so to the extent that we can do that, I think it's really helpful, but that's not going to be enough capacity. So making sure that we are uplifting organizations like this one to also build out the capacity and support those who want to start home care businesses, the small businesses, we should be able to support them in doing so.
So I wanted to ask a little bit about sort of high need student groups. So roughly 1 in 5 students in New York City has a disability, 160,000 are learning English as a new language, more than 146,000 experienced homelessness last year. Can you speak to some of the barriers those students are currently facing in getting an appropriate education? And as mayor, how would you address those challenges and how do you envision changing the system to ensure students who need the most support get access to the programs, services, and resources they need to succeed in school?
Yeah, I don't think that we're investing our taxpayer dollars in the ways that we should. I think we need many more bilingual teachers. I, in fact, believe that every single child in New York City should learn at least 2 languages. We are the most globalized city. There is no reason why a child shouldn't, at the very least, know English and their native language. I actually also argue this is a way to fight against white supremacy. I think it's important for everybody to remember their roots and where they come from. And it's a way to build bridges and a commonality. We need to attract that type of workforce, however. And so I have an affordable housing plan that not only builds low-income rentals, but also modest equity homeownership opportunities like New York City used to do with Co-op City and Electchester and Warbas and Penn South here in Manhattan in order to attract and retain a workforce for many of our civil service jobs, whether we're talking about educators, nurses, doctors, firefighters, EMS workers, or even the NYPD, all of which we have shortages in. People are right now not wanting to do work that is critical to all of our communities. I want to make sure that we have the proper supports for District 75. I don't know that all children need to be segregated from their other peers. I think we have lacked a conversation that is inclusive of all of the different type of educators who can better inform the DOE's approach, which in my experience and in my opinion has been very top heavy. There's a lot of people working at Tweed, not enough people in the classroom. And making sure that we, at the very least, are helping those teachers who help children with disabilities have a website to order the supplies that are needed, because that's not included on the DOE website for those who have had that experience. And making sure that we are responding to children's IEPs. I mean, if you were to ask me, and I know not everybody agrees with this, but I wish we had IEPs for every student so that we could better understand how to cluster them based on their needs and based on their academic ability. When we get into children or youth who are a little older, one of the campaign platforms I'm running on is making summer youth employment year-round. I want to keep young people busy. I was wondering about timing. I was just talking. I want to make sure we're keeping our young people busy and making sure that they have a path that leads to greater job satisfaction when they're older. So being able to figure out as early as possible, whether you're a desk person, a field person, whether you have the stomach to be a doctor or not, all of those things are really important, even in making sure that they're staying out of trouble. So to me, it's really actually investing in people and less in cronyism and a top-heavy bureaucracy.
So there are 3 more questions I'd love to get to.
Okay.
Programs that serve youth and families are often not designed with their needs in mind. So in the pre-K and 3K space, we know that the seats available to families don't always match their work hours or preferred location.
Or location.
This is something we've covered a lot at Chalkbeat. Hundreds of children with disabilities are waiting for seats in preschool special ed classes, and thousands of preschoolers are waiting for other support, including like related services like speech and occupational therapy. For summer programs, many families are seeking enriching and fun services for their children. The city's summer program only does also have sort of a required academic component. So as mayor, how would you improve youth and early childhood programs so they can value and respect the needs of families and offer them the choice that they want?
Well, I think universal childcare should account for children of younger ages to have a safe place to be on during the summer. During the summer months. I think that parents should have an option of whether that's in a smaller environment, given their child's needs, or whether what this would look like throughout the summer within the school system, even when it comes to after-school care. I want to be able to provide universal after-school. Hey, Scott. I want to be able to provide universal after-school for elementary and middle school. For high schools, I want to do something different. Many scientific studies now show that there is no reason why teenagers should be up so early. And I think that if high school were to start later in the day, then maybe we can even have those buildings close later in the day so that they can be a safe place for our young people to seek enrichment opportunities and overall to be safe. There's a lot we need to do when it comes to education.
So this is a question that I imagine will resonate with some folks in this room, and it's an issue that you brought up a moment ago. So delayed contract registrations, chronic payment lags, persistent procurement issues continue to be a big problem for service providers, and it also threatens their ability to actually operate their programs.
Many have closed.
And so I'm wondering sort of how, under your administration, how you would ensure that families don't lose services and providers aren't forced to close their doors due to either unpaid or delayed contracts.
I largely think that the contract renewal process happens too late in the fiscal year. I would like to see that process start earlier and make sure that there's a much more centralized notion about how contracting services is going with every agency, because unfortunately, this is not a problem limited to the childcare sector. It is across the human services sector writ large, right? All of the community-based organizations and not-for-profits that we depend on to serve even our homeless population. And the goal is to provide housing first for all of these families, especially when they have children. So making sure that we are paying people on time and that there are penalties for when the city pays their bills late, I think also develops a greater incentive for government to work and for a better relationship of trust with those community-based organizations, because we can't afford for daycares and other places to just go out of business.
Do we have time for one more? Or no, we're out of time. Okay. Thank you so much for joining us.
And you can see both our youth jobs guarantee and our child care program on my website, ramosfornyc.com. And be sure to email with any questions. Thank you all. Don't forget to vote June 24th. And hopefully I can count on you ranking me #1. Thank you. I forgot about the double mic.
Only ask those or just make sure that's wrong. I see. So it's a question, which level? Contracts, so number. This one? So 1 and 3. Thank you.
Next up, we have former Assembly member, former Mayoral president, former
Thank you. Hi, everybody.
So thank you so much for being here. We're going to do a lightning round. Okay, so the organizations and individuals gathered here today are committed to ensuring that all children have access to high-quality early childhood education and youth services, including childcare, pre-K, after-school, and summer programs, regardless of family income or a child's needs, including disability status, housing status, or immigration status. As mayor, how would you make that a reality, and what's your vision for early childhood and youth development programming?
So first of all, thank you, everybody in this room today, for taking care of our children. It is not lost on me as a dad of a 13-year-old and 11-year-old, the challenges working parents face and parents with very little income face in terms of raising a child. By the way, these are my kids, not my grandkids. Some of you look at me and go, what? But it's okay. I know what you're thinking. But I wanted to come here and just make it clear to you about where my agenda stands as it relates to this question. And I'm going to apologize because I can't stay long because we've done 25 forums. There's a press conference at 11. So I just apologize that I can't stay for the whole thing. But to get right to the point, I have introduced a tri-shared child care plan, which is essentially a universal child care. I'm for baselining pre-K and 3K. And I want to extend the school day to 4:30 to give kids the supplemental help they need in tutoring and other after-school programs. The school building should be a community building, and it should be a safe place for our children. And I believe we can fund this by crashing the DOE bureaucracy. We're spending so much money on administration. We don't spend enough on actually allocating resources for the children. So I will be aligned with you on that issue.
So I want to pose a question that we were just talking about with Senator Ramos. So the early childhood education and youth services workforce are the backbone of the systems that serve families. Yet this workforce, which is mostly women of color, often feels underpaid and underappreciated, and those sectors are experiencing significant turnover and vacancies. How would you invest in the early childhood education and youth services workforce to ensure they receive adequate pay and benefits that they need to support families and communities?
For many people who provide these services, the average salary is like $17,000 a year. It's just unbelievable that we give you and the people you represent, we give you our children. We expect you and hope that you will educate them. You will identify early education issues. You will give them the robust early support they need to be great kids. And we don't pay you, we don't respect you. And the organizations that do this work that we contract with, we end up pushing them to bankruptcy because of the antiquated procurement that the city deals with. It is just ridiculous. Now, I fought alongside you when I was controller, and I will tell you what my experience tells me about what we have to do. You know, we could talk about penalizing agencies and we can jump up and down and get mad, but this is one very clear solution to procurement. When the bill comes, you pay the bill. The mayor orders the agencies to come up with a plan. That's all you got to do. And here's what we really have to do. When you look at the different agencies, there's no procurement officer. There's no staff there. Nobody prioritizes it. So even with the best of intentions of a commissioner, when you turn over the paperwork, which by the way is still paperwork, right? How many people like bring a stack of paperwork praying that the city will even look at it? And so we have to go back to rethinking how these agencies run as it relates to procurement. Nobody is ever going to have a demonstration at City Hall saying no procurement, no peace, right? It's just not there. So you need a mayor who has the experience to get into the woods, not just make promises, but who's actually dealt with this fight for 8 years. And no one running for mayor had to deal with this kind of procurement fight, both within the agencies and also making sure the controller's office hit the mandate for getting those contracts back.
You got time for more, or?
Yeah, I'm gonna be in trouble.
All right,
Oh, do one more.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, so programs that serve youth and families are often not designed with their needs in mind. In the pre-K and 3K space, we know that seats available to families don't always match their work hours or preferred location. We've done a lot of coverage of the fact that hundreds of students with disabilities are waiting for seats, and thousands of them are going without the related services that they're entitled to. So I'm curious as mayor how you would improve youth and early childhood education programs so they meet the needs of families and address some of those problems.
Well, first of all, we're gonna do something that you haven't really seen in the last few years. We're gonna be honest about the challenges. We're gonna identify the childcare deserts. We're gonna look at when programs operate in a community and match parents to the programs, and then listen to the providers when they tell us that they can transform programs with a little more resources and a little better planning. We've also got to break down the silos here. We've got multiple agencies that work with you, whether it's ACS, Department of Education, and nobody knows what the left hand and the right hand are doing. So when a parent goes online and says, I really want to put my kid into this amazing program, and find out that that program is 2 miles away and can't get 2 kids to that program, then what have we said? We basically said these programs are available for some and not all. This is about, and I guess I'm going to stress this today, this is not about a mayoralty on training wheels. We got a choice to make here. Do we build the next administration to meet the challenge in a real way? Being mayor is not about swagger. It's, although, could you imagine? That was actually not a joke. Okay, but think about this. Being mayor is doing the hard work of governing and rebuilding agencies and building capacity. All the aspirational work that goes into pre-K and 3K and a real childhood program and an after-school program, which will cost hundreds of millions of dollars, you need to have a financial background to manage that budget, but you also have to have the experience to build capacity in the agency. So if you don't get trained people to do procurement, you don't have a plan. If you don't have people, professionals, mapping from a land use and zoning perspective, all the different all the different work that needs to be done to give people those options in communities, we're going to be back here year after year saying the same thing. Some years it'll be about baselining funding. Other years we'll talk about the lack of a procurement infrastructure. And most importantly, parents who are struggling to raise kids, the people who make 50, 60, 70,000 or less, the people who are the traditional backbone of our city, they're the ones who are being pushed out. They're being pushed out. And the reason they're being pushed out is because they can't take care of their kids in a way they want their kids to be successful and thrive. And this is what gets me. Childcare is no longer an option. Childcare is actually a right. Why should my kid have childcare, getting into a pre-K program, starting at the earliest age, and other people can't afford it or can't access it? Privilege has its place. When my kid has a problem, I got a credit card. Other parents who love their kids just as much, they don't have a credit card. They're working 2 jobs. They're getting home at 11 o'clock. If we can't meet their needs, then this city will be a city for the very wealthy and the very, very poor, and nothing in between. And you know who the losers are? Our babies. They're the most important thing. I've really learned this as an older dad. If I'm mayor, I'm telling you right now, we're going to upend this system. We're going to change it. We're going to repair it. We're going to streamline it. And I just want to leave you with this. This can be done. This is not aspirational. This is not aspirational. This is not fake news. We can totally fix this issue by having a strong manager as mayor. And I ask you to consider that when you rank candidates. And just like Jessica said, she wants you to rank her number one. Fine. And you rank me number two. Maybe you rank me number one. But do not rank me number three, because I'm the one who beats Cuomo. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
So once again, we're just going to remind candidates you have 18 minutes, actually, 17, 18. We will let you know. I am sitting right in the front there to remind you of the 5 minute. Next up, we have Michael Blake, former assembly member from the Bronx, former DNC vice chair, and former staffer with the Obama administration.
Thanks for joining us. What up? All right, so special bonus points if we can get through all 7 questions.
We're gonna get them all. Let's do it.
Great.
I
Okay,
found
so
my phone. That's why I was late. I had to go to like Long Island, so I'm ready. Okay.
all right, so I'll jump right in. Okay, so the organizations and individuals gathered here today are committed to ensuring that all children have access to high quality early childhood education and youth services, including childcare, pre-K, after school, and summer programs, regardless of a family's income or child's need. As mayor, how would you make this a reality, and what's your vision for early childhood and youth development programming?
We have to be serious on how we focus on our children. It's hard to see everybody right there. We have to be serious on how we help our children in a very real way, because we're not doing it. Childcare and housing are the fundamental expenses. Use a flash. I'm a dark brother. Help me out right now. So we have to be very intentional of supporting that. And I have said that we would take funding from the cash reserves. We would have a vacant apartment tax, which would give us about $2 billion to do both of those, so that any family across New York City that needs help with childcare would get that support immediately for them.
So one of the defining issues in this race is affordability. Childcare for toddlers costs New Yorkers an average of $24,000 a year, according to the Citizens Committee for Children. Additionally, about 80% of eligible toddlers aren't receiving vouchers they qualify for, and private care for 2-year-olds is out of reach for many New Yorkers. These costs and complications around childcare prompting some families to leave the city, with families with kids under 6 are twice as likely to move out. How do you plan to make childcare more affordable and accessible so working and middle-class families can stay in the city?
We need a local median income, because AMI does not work. Area median income, for anyone that's wondering, calculates, I'm gonna move around, I'm a preacher, it's hard to see. AMI calculates Westchester County and other places outside of New York City, which obviously leads to your expenses then being higher from what we're actually doing properly. So if we are serious about ensuring that we're giving funding and support for childcare, we first have to understand what the expenses are for you locally. That is the reason why you voted on it. You passed the true cost of living in 2023, but Eric Adams has been so focused trying to stay out of jail, he actually didn't implement that for you, okay? Because that is something that we should be doing right now. If we did that right now, we would then have a targeted proportional expense by your neighborhood on what it is that you need for childcare and for housing, which is tied to the affordability crisis. Second, we've seen the data that too often people are only talking about getting someone to minimum wage. That's nonsense. We got to go much higher than that. It has to be at a minimum a living wage, if not further. Data is suggesting that you have to be at a minimum $67 per livable wage for a family of children of 2 just to have a chance. That's clearly not enough. If you're struggling with your expenses, which all of us are to this degree, we have to make sure we change that. Lastly, I do believe that you have to do 2 specific things to address the affordability crisis. We have to end using credit scores for rent and home ownership applications. Fundamentally, it is a racist, discriminatory policy that doesn't make any sense. And we have to expand the income thresholds for housing applications, because right now you have to be rich or poor enough to get access to a home, and both are wrong.
So the early childhood education and youth services workforce are the backbone of the systems that serve families. But this workforce, which is mostly women of color, often feels underpaid and underappreciated, and those sectors are experiencing significant turnover and vacancies. How would you invest in the early childhood and youth services workforce to ensure they receive the pay and benefits they deserve and need to support families?
This is personal for me. My mama, and which Annie and others know, my mom is the matriarch of our household. Proud Jamaican mom. She raised 4 boys. She worked in a manufacturing plant, and on weekends she did childcare and also home care. And reality is, too often, women and women of color, you are underpaid, you are undervalued, you are not getting the support that would be happening. Full stop. And so, to that degree, not only will we have to have higher wages as well as wage protections for you, but we fundamentally also have to make sure that the nonprofits are getting reimbursed and paid faster and on time. That is the fundamental problem that is happening. It's one thing if you're trying to talk to someone and you're like, hey, can you help me pay this bill? And they're like, look, I don't have it right now. I just don't got it right now, right? Like, I'm giving you some Crescent and Burnside vernacular when I say it that way right there. But the city has the money. That's the thing that's most frustrating. So when we're talking about helping people, in particular women of color, and you see this all across the city, you saw this at Nuestros Niños, where the city miscalculated attendance rates, which was just nonsensical. You saw this with Grant Street. You're seeing this all across the city over and over again. It's incompetence and inefficiency in city government why people are being hurt. It's not that we don't have the money. And so we reimbursed and paid you upfront and faster, and be very focused and dedicated on addressing the consistent racism and misogyny that exists against women and women of color. Then we can have a more integrated program to make sure you're protected and supported here.
Thank you. So roughly 1 in 5 New York City students has a disability. 160,000 are learning English as a new language. More than 146,000 experienced homelessness last year. Can you speak to some of the barriers those students are currently facing in attaining a high quality education? And as mayor, how would you address those challenges? And how would you envision changing the system to ensure students who need the most support are getting access?
I have the most, see, I was excited about education. I was ready to rock. I was jumping in, sorry. I have the most expansive education plan of anyone in the race. If you go to our website, we're gonna be good students for a second. Take out your phones, take out your phones. Take out your phones right now. Come on, they're telling me I got a limited time. So Blake, so BLAKE, FOR, I'm giving you my website so you can find what I'm about to say, NYC.com, Blake for NYC.com. On the top left-hand corner, so Blake, FOR, NYC.com. On the top left-hand corner, you'll see our policies, and specifically to this question on education, which I will tell you, there is no one in the race that has a more expensive program we're laying out. I created the My Brother's Keeper program. For any of you that were with me when I was in the assembly, I did that by working with President Obama, and then we brought that here. We're still the only state in the country to do this. My elementary school was in Savage and Equality Children American Schools by Jonathan Colson, PS 79. So when we talk about this, there's many elements that we're not seriously addressing. 1 out of 8 New York City public school kids are homeless right now. It's inhumane, it is wrong, it's unacceptable. You also have just really dumb policies going on where you're having kids eating lunch at 10 or 10:30 in the morning because they suppose they can't find space. You could find space, that you need to find space for these kids. If the kid is hungry, they can't focus, right? We're not addressing the challenges around mental health and the stigmas that exist around that, in particular communities of color, because we've for some reason allowed this to be an expanded conversation as opposed to how are we helping you up front. So to the joint elements around this, we have to actually have a cradle to career vision when it comes to education. I do believe that every kid that graduates from school should have civics, financial literacy, and mental health before they graduate. I think that every kid that graduates, we should take it back how we used to have back in the day, where every student can go to CUNY if they so choose. And we also have to change the stigmas that exist too often, that not every student is going to go to a 4-year institution, and that is okay. They can go to vocation to get out the opportunities, entrepreneurial opportunities. We can do all those things. But then we also have to make sure that the transient nature that exists of what's happening in these families has to also be addressed, and in particular, immigrants. As a son of immigrants myself, we have to expand the conversation that is not just Latino only for immigration. It's Caribbean, it's African, it's Latino, it's Asian. We are all intertwined in this right now. So ICE will have no business in schools and places of worship and community centers while I'm your mayor. We're gonna be clear about that, right? It is unconstitutional. It is wrong, it is inhumane, it is impacting all of us. And if we take these things seriously, we'll be able to actually make sure that you have a plan that's realistic here. Lastly, we have to make sure that we are helping people to not just go to school and graduate from school, but graduate with less debt and then graduate with a pipeline to get a job. Right? Because you can have all this training all you want, but if you can't get a job, then what's the point, right? And so I say you got to be real connected to the street. That young cat that's standing on the corner that might be a part of the wrong deal, they're a mathematical genius. They just need to be directed to something new. See, even Siri agrees with me over here, right? Okay. So you have to make sure that you are making the direct connection to the job opportunities and higher wages. That is the vision I would have around education and how we help our kids.
So programs that serve youth and families are often not designed with their needs in mind. In the pre-K and 3K space, we know that the seats available to families don't always match their work hours or preferred location. In addition, hundreds of children with disabilities are waiting for seats in preschool special education classes, and thousands more aren't getting the services they're entitled to. For summer programs, many families are seeking like enriching and fun services for their children, but the only free programs available have a required academic component. So I'm curious as mayor, like how you would improve youth and early childhood education programs so they kind of value and respect the needs of families and offer them the choices they want.
Well, we would actually have an education system that's caring about the students and parents and not just about helping some people keep their jobs. Right? You have some things that just don't make sense. So let's go a step back around disability. First, we have to be more intentional. Forgive me, again, this feels bad that I can't see your faces. Forgive me right there. Am I messing with the screen? Okay. So we have to be very intentional when we talk around disabilities collectively. It's not just physical in terms of someone being in a wheelchair. It could be hearing, it could be sight, it could be how do we have changes? How do you actually have opportunities when it comes to wheelchair access? How are you thinking about it in terms of, is there ADA access by the train station, other places you're trying to go? Is there a ramp to actually get into that school? Are we actually having Braille on the elevators and in business? Like those are the kinds of things we got to be thinking through. And again, if we have more professionals of color that come from our communities that can help someone diagnose a challenge, as opposed to being afraid of talking about it, it helps all of us. It's the reason why I co-led the effort on diversity in medicine when I was in the assembly, because it doesn't make sense that you don't have someone get the help that they need so they can become better along the way. To the extended part of the question, too often what is happening right now is you have a system that is effectively trying to help a kid pass a test rather than learn. And so, like, when we're talking about this, like, I was a superb student. I went to PSM 118 D with Clinton, but I sucked. Okay, D with Clinton, okay, come on, show me love, fellow governor out here, I like that. But I sucked at standardized tests. It freaked me out. I would get nervous. And if it wasn't for an incredible alum at Northwestern who did a student interview, I don't get it to Northwestern, right? And so I bring that up, that we have to make practical changes. For example, for parent and community engagement, which is funded through the My Brother's Keeper program right now. I see your 5 minutes. I'm from Focus, Danny. I got you, right? It doesn't make sense that we keep telling parents, let's do a meeting at Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. when I know you can't get there from work and you don't have childcare. As opposed to maybe if I do a Saturday morning breakfast that we pay for the breakfast, we pay for your transportation and we provide childcare, then you can be a part of what's going on with your family so that the student can actually be engaged. It just makes more comprehensive sense doing it that way. If you actually have a consistent roadmap of what are you doing so the children have something to do from 3 to 6 p.m. so that you then know, okay, I don't have to worry about what's going on with my kid. I don't have to rush home from work. And we're adults. You can then go get a meal, right? You cannot be stressing about all these different things. It is relevant for education and it's all intertwined. And so I'm giving you that perspective of the comprehensive vision we would have. Again, I do believe our education approach has to be about how are you truly transforming a child into a global citizen, not just to a test taker.
Two more, right? We're doing great. Yeah, come on. Okay, so delayed contract registration.
This clock is faster than yours, by the way, but it's okay. Okay, go ahead.
Chronic payment delays and persistent procurement issues continue to burden service providers, threatening their ability to operate programs. A recent Human Services Council survey found that about 90% of members are owed delayed payments totaling $365 million, primarily due to passport glitches, regulatory delays, and invoicing problems. About a third reported payment delays exceeding 6 months, while close to half have taken out loans or lines of credit totaling $87 million. incurring $6 million in interest. Under your administration, how would you ensure that families don't lose services and providers aren't forced to close their doors due to unpaid or delayed contracts?
So, so I want to separate the elements here. Again, there is a difference if the funds are not there, right? I want you to treat it like your personal life experience. Every single person in this room knows that you got a cousin or a boo or your boo's boo who you were trying to figure out. Some of y'all picked up on that right there, right? That you have bills to pay, but maybe that month you just don't have it. That is different than what's happening here, because the city has the money. The funds have been in there. They're pretty much just trying to generate interest on your money before giving it to you. And then effectively telling you, you didn't fill out a piece of paper correctly, and so therefore I'm not going to pay you on time, or you didn't actually submit this document correctly. Let's be real again. There are people who are just trying to keep their jobs because they are not doing their job. And because of that, they're hurting you and keeping your job. That's what's practically happening, right? And so this is why I say a mayor is a manager and a CEO of a $115 billion budget. And you need someone who actually knows how to run an operation. And I was listening to Scott. I got love for Scott, love for everybody else. But I'm going to tell y'all there's different things about me. First, I'm the only person in this race who has White House, State House, and local experience. So I know how to run things at all levels. Second, I'm the only person in this race who's actually defeated Donald Trump when I was vice chair of the DNC. So if you want someone who's a fighter, you need someone that's ready for this. Third, I'm a handsome Jamaican man. So I'm just saying, like, at the end of the day, like, there's reasons why you should see. So to the point, that was going to be number 4. But number 3 is that, like, I run small businesses. So I understand cash flow. I understand payroll. And I understand what you're dealing with, where when you have 6 months of delays, years of delays, and then you have to figure out line of credit or laying people off or people doing different shifts, it's unacceptable because of incompetence. And this is why I go back to, you need better managers and leaders. And if you give me that chance, Michael Blake can be there for you.
Great. And so our last question,
Yep.
You're the first candidate to get through all 7, so congratulations. Providers face many issues ensuring quality services, from delayed background checks in the health department to long wait times for approval of child care assistance applications to rapidly changing program requirements. What will you do as mayor to ensure, to improve the collaboration between city agencies and nonprofits to ensure efficient service delivery?
Well, I'm married to a Jamaican Honduran lawyer, so she would keep me in line first with the 2 girls to make sure we do this properly and correctly. Again, I like this road. Y'all keep picking up on my comments right there. I see that's going on right there. To do this properly and correctly, this goes back to, first, who do you hire? A mayor is a CEO, it's an executive. And too often, the people being hired and selected don't know what the hell they're doing. And then you are the ones that are being harmed by this. And so the ways to do this correctly and well is having the proper management teams in place who actually come from the community and have done this work. Because then it's not theoretical on how are we figuring this out. There's questions around language access. There's questions around cultural access. There's questions of understanding who do I mobilize and who do I rock with. There's that understanding that this person in this community, everyone understands that this is a trusted validator. And I know you and your piece of paper may not understand that, but I'm telling you, if you work with this person, things will happen here, right? And so I'm giving that to the question because at the end of the day, you need to know that you have someone who understands how this is supposed to be done and puts the people in place to execute this correctly and well. And we're talking about when it comes to the kids, and we're talking about what's going on around not just education, but holistically, what are we doing for our children? As Secretary Pete Buttigieg said to me, our #1 job is to train our replacements. And so for the 16-year-old girl who's playing volleyball in our family and the 13-year-old who plays basketball, they don't really care about anything else that I'm talking about. They want to make sure that, are we good? And that's what you're doing. Do I get a closing or no? You're right. So I answered all your questions, so I should get 30 seconds. So again, my name is Michael Blake. What's my name? Okay, there we go. What's my website? If you believe that you should make and keep more money in your pocket, if you believe that we should have truly affordable housing, if you believe that we should have local median income because AMI is not working, if you believe that we should be focused on helping our kids because they're not being helped right now in an environment where anti-Blackness and anti-Latino and all the attacks are happening against our communities, if you believe that we can do this better and that we deserve better, my name is Michael Blake. I'm asking you to rank me first. If I'm not your first, I want to be your second, but I should be your first. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you right now. Thank you very much. Thank you. What happened this morning? Thank you.
So thank you so much, Michael Blake. We're gonna do a selfie. Don't worry, it's not taking time away from your next candidate. You keep hearing about ranked choice voting, so just want to make sure that you are aware that ranked choice voting allows voters to rank up to 5 candidates in order of preference instead of casting a vote for just one. For more information on deadlines for voting, registration, and ranked choice voting, please visit vote.nyc. Is our next candidate here? And so now we're going to bring up State Senator from Brooklyn, Zellner Myers.
Thanks for coming. Thank you for having me.
Okay. Okay. Great.
So thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
You could be the second candidate to get through all 7 questions. We'll see. The organizations and individuals gathered here today are committed to ensuring that all children have access to high quality early childhood education and youth services, including childcare, pre-K, after school, summer programs, regardless of a family's income or a child's need. As mayor, how would you make that a reality? And what is your vision for early childhood and youth development programming for the city?
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for hosting this forum. Thank you for the work that you do. Thank you, Alex, for moderating. And I'm really excited about this forum because I have centered my campaign in providing accessible childcare and high quality free after school for everybody. I would not be sitting in this chair today if not for an after school program. My mom, like most New Yorkers, did not get off at 2:30 p.m. I had to continue to work to put food on the table. And after school is where I kept off the streets. It is where I learned karate, and I was terrible at it. But I was the only boy on the step team, and I was pretty good. And I think that every family should have this opportunity. So I want to do a couple of things as the next mayor. I want to extend pre-K and 3K past 2:30 p.m. to 6 p.m. I want to ensure that it is truly universal and accessible to all families that need it, no waiting list for it. I'm going to provide high quality free after school for everybody. As I mentioned, I would not be here without it. So many families are leaving because they do not have this opportunity. I want to provide that as the next mayor. But I've started this work already in my current role in the state Senate. I introduced a bill that required the Office of Children and Family Services to give us a study on exactly how much it would cost to provide universal after school for all New York families. That study is due to the legislature in a couple of weeks, and I plan to use that as a blueprint in order to get us to true universal after school.
So one of the most important issues in this race is affordability. Childcare for toddlers costs New Yorkers an average of $24,000 a year, according to the Citizens Committee for Children. Additionally, about 80% of eligible toddlers aren't receiving vouchers they qualify for, and private care for 2-year-olds is unaffordable for many New Yorkers. Those costs and complications around childcare are prompting some families to leave the city, and families with kids under 6 are twice as likely to move away. How would you plan to make childcare more affordable and accessible so working and middle-class families can stay in the city?
Yeah, so I think before we get to the outcome of providing accessible and affordability, we got to think about the support that we provide to the people already doing the work. Being a childcare provider is incredibly challenging and difficult, yet you are not compensated as you should be. And there are so many organizations that have been doing work on a shoestring budget. one that is not reimbursed appropriately or on time. And so I think it's really important that we start with providing support for the people already doing the work, ensuring that they have the wages that are necessary, and ensuring that they have the resources that are consistent. Then, as we look to the outcome for New York City families, I want to ensure, as I mentioned, that every pre-K and 3K program is extended to 6 p.m. That is a budgetary question. We are going to have some tough conversations in conjunction with the City Council to ensure that the budget is investing in these providers and in these families to have that extension. As you mentioned, you're twice as likely to leave this city if you are a parent. 2 out of 5 New Yorkers are turning down jobs because they don't have childcare that can help them sustain that professional development. That should not be. We cannot be a city where you cannot raise your family. We cannot accept that. I reject that premise. I'm someone that is born and raised here. And the next mayor has to be very serious about this. This is going to be one of my #1 priorities. We talk about a lot of stuff in this campaign, but this is the future of our city, literally. And if we do not invest now, we will pay on the back end. I want to invest on the front end.
You talked a little bit about investing in the workforce, and that was going to be kind of my next question. So I'm wondering if you can go into a little bit more detail about how precisely you would sort of invest in making sure that those workers get the sort of compensation that they need to live here, and also to support, the people they serve.
There's a lot of boring and unsexy things about governing, and one of those things are contracting. And the people who are the providers that have to cut the payroll, they have so much uncertainty in this process because they're not paid on time, and the city is not accountable for what they do in this regard. And so I think we first have to establish consistency. You look at some of the after-school contracts, and whether it's Compass or Sonic, that are on 9-month contract cycles. I think that doesn't make sense. I think we should extend that cycle. I think we need a new contract renewal, as many of people have called for, that is not based on the conditions from 5 years ago, so that the providers can have some stability and predictability in the system. Then we got to, of course, talk about the wages, and that is really key in this conversation. To me, again, that is a straight, are we willing to invest money in the people doing the hard work? I say we should. And I think that we are a city with enough resources to get that done. I want to invest in that in the front end. I want to be very serious about this from day one. I think we need some interagency coordination on this front. I want to put our Department of Education and DYCD under one deputy mayor, someone that I can call and hold accountable to cut through the red tape. The only reason we were able to get universal 3K and pre-K done is because City Hall made it a priority. And they said, we are going to cut through the bureaucracy and the red tape to ensure that we get this up and running. Amazing start. We have a lot more work to do on this front. I want to use the political power of City Hall to ensure that we expand it and that we have universal after school as well.
So roughly 1 in 5 New York City students has a disability. 160,000 are learning English as a new language, and more than 146,000 experienced homelessness last year. Can you speak to some of the barriers those students are facing right now in getting a high quality education? And as mayor, what would you do to address some of those challenges?
Thank you. And this is something that's personal to me. My dad taught special education in the Bronx, PS 112, for 22 years. And came home every single day with so many stories about how much he enjoyed doing this really hard and challenging work, but how little support that he received often from Central. I think it is important that we do not forget our most vulnerable New Yorkers in this conversation. And oftentimes, those are our children of immigrants. It is our students with disabilities. It is students that are in temporary housing. So I think that we have to, when we talk about extension of pre-K and 3K, the eligibility can't just be where people have to come to you. City Hall has to be proactive in going out to the community and expressing to people what they are eligible for and how they can get involved and bring them in. I think when we look at some of the more technical aspects of just transportation access to some of our locations, whether it's after school, pre-K, 3K, I'd like to see school bus access be extended, regardless of where you live or regardless of whether your housing is temporary or permanent. When we talk about our IEPs, when I was in my former life, I had a law firm, I did pro bono work with then public advocate Letitia James, when she sued the Department of Education because our IEP system was wrapped with corruption and fraud and not providing the services that people needed. I want to ensure from City Hall that we hold folks accountable, that we have an IEP system that is transparent, that is well-resourced. And for the people that are doing this work, that is really challenging, they also need the professional support to do that and the training to do that. Oftentimes, when we're talking about our students where English is a second language, our professionals who are well-intentioned don't have the support to do that. I think we got to look back to the pipeline on this. What incentives are we doing in our higher education system to give people an easier path to do this type of work, to teach? I think that we should use our CUNY system to be giving scholarships and making it easier for folks to get into this line of work so that we start with the pipeline, have more personnel, and I think have better outcomes.
So programs that serve youth and families aren't always designed with their needs in mind. In the pre-K and 3K space, we know that the seats available to families don't always match their work hours or preferred location. On top of that, hundreds of children with disabilities are waiting for seats in preschool special education seats, and thousands more aren't getting the services they're entitled to. For summer programs, there are families that are looking for like enriching and fun programs for their kids. The city's free program has a required academic component. So I'm wondering, as mayor, how you would improve kind of youth and early childhood education programs so that they're kind of better meeting the needs of families and offering the choices that they want.
Yeah, look, I think that some of the considerations that went into limiting access to Summer Rising and some of these other programs really start from a fiscal disposition of, well, what can the city afford? And my position is we pay a lot more if we do not provide these opportunities up front. And so when you look at Summer Rising or the opportunities to do fun and engaging things in the summer, I don't think that there should be a requirement for that. Parents don't get the summers off by and large. And so our students and our families are still gonna need that relief. I'd like to expand that eligibility so that regardless of income, regardless of the academic requirement, you can be able to participate in these programs. I mentioned earlier that we gotta be more proactive in going out to the communities and meeting the families where they are. Some of the uptake has been lower in some neighborhoods, not because the need is not there, but because people just don't know. And it's not their fault. They're working. They're trying to put food on the table. They're doing all the things that regular New Yorkers do. We have to change City Hall's disposition here. I want to be a lot more proactive on that so people know the programming that's available and that we can expand it so that everyone can access it.
So I think you touched on this a little bit earlier, but I think it's worth delving into a little bit more. Delayed contract registrations, chronic payment lags, persistent procurement issues. These are all really big issues for service providers. And it matters because it threatens their ability to operate programs. A recent Human Services Council survey found that about 90% of their members are owed delayed payments totaling about $365 million, primarily due to passport glitches, regulatory delays, and invoicing problems. About a third reported payment delays exceeding 6 months. About half have taken out loans or lines of credit totaling $87 million, incurring $6 million of interest alone. Under your administration, how would you ensure that families don't lose services and providers aren't forced to close their doors due to some of those issues?
It's disgraceful, period, that providers are not paid on time. We would not accept this for any other industry. For any other industry, we wouldn't accept this. But for the people doing the most challenging work, the people who are caring for the most vulnerable New Yorkers, we think it's okay to not pay you. I wish I could tell my loan providers, I'm not gonna pay you today. I wish. We don't do that. We don't accept it. This is not gonna be acceptable in my administration. One, I want a blue ribbon commission on day one to establish a review of all outstanding contracts and what reforms we can implement within my first 4 years in office. Second, I think that there should be some more transparency in this process. There should be an online portal for people to see whether the city has paid our providers on time or not. They say transparency usually gets you to the right place. I'm hoping that that's the beginning. But I think the next step should be, there should be some penalty for the city not paying our providers on time. This to me would be the greatest incentive for us to get our act together and ensure that providers are getting what they need. And so I'd like to work with the city council and with the state legislature if necessary in order to figure out what that mechanism would be. We also have some ability, it might take a charter amendment to do this, but for some of the smaller grants, we can put money up front that doesn't have to go through all of this process. My understanding there's a current city council bill to this effect. I would be supportive of that process. It'd take a little longer, but I think it might help some of our smaller organizations who don't need the big grants up front, but who actually need to make payroll on an everyday basis. So I think this is something that's super, super important. We should be ashamed as a city, and this has spanned administrations, that we do not pay our providers on time. I want to change that as the next mayor.
So I wanted to get to another operational issue. So providers, many providers are facing issues connected to delayed background checks from the health department, long wait times for approval of childcare assistance applications, and rapidly changing program requirements. What would you do as mayor to improve collaboration between city agencies and nonprofits to ensure better service delivery?
Yes, I mentioned some of this earlier in trying to have one deputy mayor oversee most of this. But you point to a really important administrative hurdle. When we talk about hiring folks, the type of people that go into this work, the work that you do, the work that our families benefit from, you are very special people. You care deeply for the most vulnerable amongst us. And you do the work not for the pay, you do it because you care and because there's something inside of you that wants to help our children. But if you take 6 months to hear back from a provider because they could not clear with DOHMH or OCFS, or there was a clearance and then something got a hiccup, you have to continue to put food on the table. You got to go somewhere else. So this has a real impact on our ability, not just to hire, but to retain people. Because if you have trouble hiring, then the people that are currently working are doing the work of 3 people instead of 1. And so I think this is really important. Part of my study bill that I had signed into law last year is going to require the Office of Children and Family Services to figure out how to streamline some of this, to say what can we consolidate so that there is one point of entry and that it makes it easier for providers to hire and retain personnel.
Cool. Thanks so much for being here.
Great. I got the other questions?
You did.
All right, come on now.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, everybody. Much appreciated. Good luck, the rest of the way.
Thank you so much, Zellner Meyer, Senator Zellner Meyer. Let's see. Just going to ask for folks to bear with us for another few minutes. We have 3 speakers that are going to be joining us to share some remarks. I'm going to bring up in just a minute. Let's just make sure the mic stays on. Okay, here we go. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to bring up Tara Gardner, Executive Director of the Daycare Council of New York. Huh?
Pay attention. So I'm going to be super quick. I'm Tara Gardner. I'm the Executive Director of the Daycare Council, and we're the membership organization of New York City's early care and education providers, and a proud member of Campaign for Children. And some of you may have heard me say this before, but I'm also a proud Head Start graduate. And I like to share that just to put a face on it, right? It makes a difference and underscores that where we start isn't where we end up. And on behalf of C4C and all of today's co-sponsors, thank you. Thank you for being with us, whether in the room or via the live stream, for this important conversation with four of the candidates to be our city's next mayor. There is no issue that speaks to the future of New York City more than how we serve our youngest residents, our children. And we as a city must be committed to ensuring that all children have access to high quality early childhood education and youth services. We must invest to support the underpaid and underappreciated members of the early childhood education and youth services workforce who provide quality programs and keep our children safe every day. While we're not telling you who to vote for, we are urging you to vote because it matters. And we urge you to consider the candidates' positions on early childhood education. Whoa. It's not working. Okay, no. I'll just hold it. Sorry for the noise. Again, for early childhood education and youth services as you vote. The general election, as a reminder, the general election is November 4th, with early voting from October 25th to November 2nd. And the primary election, where all parties will select their nominees, is on June 24th, with early voting from June 14th to June 22nd. And to vote in that primary, you have to be registered to vote and enrolled in a party by June 14th. Please continue to join us over the next several months as we advocate for a city that invests in early childhood education and youth services. And don't forget to visit vote.nyc. Thank you. Don't go anywhere. We're not done. There.
Next up, we're going to bring up Michelle Avila from Good Shepherd Services, Learning to Work Program.
Hello, everyone. My name is Michelle Aviles, and I'm just going to share a quick story of what I do. So I'm an advocate counselor from downtown Brooklyn, YABC, and my job is to advocate for students who may need resources that they are not aware of while they're at our program. I am here today to share my story and how I ended up here. When I was in high school, I was struggling pretty bad, like most students, and it got to a point where I could no longer face being at my school. My guidance counselor called me into the office and told me that because I was 18, I basically had two options, to drop out or to get my GED. Stunned and devastated, I decided to go home and think about it. I remember having to tell my parents, which, as you can imagine, was a fun conversation. I remember telling my sister, and my sister flipped out. Because to my surprise, she wasn't mad at me, she was mad at my counselor. Because her job was at a night school. For students just like me, students who struggled with insomnia and couldn't make it on time, students who were the breadwinners of their families and had to take on full-time jobs instead of going to school, students who would probably love nothing more but to be in school, but for some reason they couldn't. How could they not tell you about night school? My sister concluded. I walked into my counselor's office the next day and told my counselor I wanted to go to night school. He gave me my forms and he told me good luck. I went to night school, got my diploma, and went to college, which was something I never saw for myself. I stand before you today as an advocate counselor for the same program that gave me a second chance. I'm here to repay what was given to me, and I will continue to show up for every meeting for as long as I have to, if it means that these programs get the proper funding to stay open. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. So we want to once again thank our moderator, Alex Zimmerman, for not only doing an amazing job, but keeping everybody on time. And thank you so much for your very inquisitive questions. Thank you, Alex. We wouldn't be advocates if we didn't send you off with a charge. There's so many things that we are all advocating for together. Again, I also ask that you pick up as you go a booklet that we've put together that includes the priorities for all of the organizations that are sponsoring this event. Once again, we have the Alliance for Quality Education, the Campaign for Children, the Coalition for Community Schools Excellence, the New York State Network for Youth Success, New Yorkers United for Childcare, and the Coalition for Equitable Education Funding. And next up, you're gonna have a charge. So get ready, get those phones out, because we have Natasha Cherry Perez of Urban Strategies who's gonna be uplifting Head Start for us.
Had to check the time. It's still good morning. Good morning, everyone. As stated, my name is Natasha Cherry Perez. I am a parent and a board member of Urban Strategies. We have early childhood education programs in Brooklyn. And what a great day it was. We heard from 4 candidates for mayoral for the mayor, and it was great to hear about their vision for early childhood education and youth services. So all levels of education matter to childhood education. As you know, we are having issues with our federal government, many, many challenges, right? And so we are facing unprecedented challenges on the federal level. And we know that our federal Head Start programs, they are proven early childhood education and anti-poverty program. And so it's crucial that part of New York City is a crucial part. The federal Head Start program is a crucial part of the city's early childhood education system. And so as you have heard, that we are in jeopardy of losing our federal Head Start programs. And so this is going to be and have a terrible impact on our schools, right? So we know, and I know for a personal fact that my daughter benefited from Head Start programs. She was prepared for kindergarten because she attended a Head Start program. And so if we lose that, it will impact our children across, not only in New York City, but across the nation. And we cannot have that. And so not only will it impact our children, it will impact families because guess what? They won't be able to work if they don't have childcare. And on top of that, think about all of the workers that work in our Head Start programs. They won't have a job. We're talking about directors, teachers, cooks, janitors, security. They won't have a job if these programs are eliminated. So this will be devastating to us across the nation, and it will set our children back and our families back for decades, right? And so what we need to do now is I need everyone to take out their phone. I need to see all the phones up, all the phones up. I need you to scan this code, and not only scan the code, I need you to take a picture of it, because after you fill out the letter, right, and contact your US representatives, your federal representatives, I need you to send this to at least 10 people. We need at least 10 people that you know of and that care about this. And if you can do more, right? We need this to be completed by as many people as possible because this is so important and it will be devastating if we don't get ahead of this. So please, 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 I'm begging you. I'm not too proud to beg for our babies. Please complete this form and share with others. And thank you so much for coming, and we appreciate it.
Okay, this concludes our formal program. Thank you so much for joining us both live in the audience as well as in the live stream. Please go on with your day and please take some food with you. Thank you.